Protect yourself and your family from unexpected challenges. Consider accident-only income protection. Click the link in the description to find out more.
Boxing King Media in association with SaveMoreMoney.com. If you want to save some money, hit that link. I like to remind people, Gareth. Well, if you ever need to save money, mate, get on to SaveMoreMoney.com. How you doing anyway, Gareth? It's been a mad weekend of boxing.
Yeah, very good, thank you. I was in Dubai last week for a crypto fight night event that I was presenting. I bumped into Amir Khan. It was lovely to see him. It was almost like a Misfits event, half boxing, half Misfits event. Aaron Chalmers on there. It was just a fascinating little card. And I was back Saturday to do the Talk Sports show for the drama of Dublin that we were talking about live on air from the studio. It's such a busy time for boxing right now. Jordan Gill and Michael Connell. I'm really looking forward to that in Belfast next weekend. Oscar Duarte, a dangerous guy for Ryan Garcia. Coming back, obviously, Conlon and Gill coming off losses. Devin Haney and Regis Prograis, really looking forward to that. Huge card in Saudi Arabia on December the 23rd. All talk around that at the moment. No, it's just boxing's massive. It really is huge at the moment, and there's some great fights. Bam Bam Rodriguez and Sonny Edwards towards the end of the year. It's terrific at the moment. Tasha Jonas and Michaela Mayer announced. But really, the standout from the weekend was the thrills and spills and the excitement in Dublin.
I thought you was going to say Dubai, the hot weather in Dubai, because it was freezing in Dublin. I can tell you that. I tell you what, before we get started, I'm going to talk about Dublin, but you know what? I was just reading some of the comments from the last interview we did, and I've got to ask you this because I think it's quite a good, genuine thought. Somebody reckons Gareth is the type of guy that closes the fridge door with his hips. Random as hell, but do you close the fridge door with your hips, Gareth?
I don't really. Listen, I could definitely close the fridge door with my head kick, but I don't want to smash the door. I don't really know what that means. I've got flexible hips, but I really don't. I don't know what that means, but I've got big fridge doors. I've got a giant fridge. I
think they've got this image of you just, walking around your house, dancing, listening to music and waltz, whatever. Do you know what I mean? That's what I'm assuming. That's a picture I've got.
It does happen. It's a very funny comment. Yeah, very funny.
I knew you'd like it. So let's talk Katy, Taylor, Shantel, Cameron. What an epic night in Dublin. We'll talk about the hot topic surrounding that knockdown. You've seen numerous replays of it. Are you happy that it wasn't a knockdown, or are you thinking it was?
Well, there's nothing conclusive in the video evidence for me, but other than Katy Taylor does fall back weirdly off balance. And the referee immediately ruled it a trip. So in your scoring, you can't score it a 10-8 round if you thought Shantel Cameron won it, or a 9-9 if you thought Katy Taylor won it. So, for me, in many ways, or you can't take the points off because the referee ruled immediately that it was a trip. Obviously, it's not going to make Shantel Cameron's team very happy about it. I think Jamie Moore, her trainer, has been a bit vocal about it afterwards, saying, doesn't want to go to Dublin again and fight. But for me, in many ways, if they can get the Croke Park fight on in front of 80,000 people, why not take that in the spring next year? There's 3 fights probably left for Katy Taylor, in my view. It's the trilogy with Shantel Cameron, the second fight with Amanda Serrano, and if you count the Olympics, a trilogy fight with amateur into pro with Tasha Jonas. I think those are the 3 fights that I would take if I was Katy Taylor's team. They're all huge. It was a magnificent event. It was a magnificent fight over 20 minutes. They fought 40 minutes now, and it's been brilliant. Very close, the first one, even though Shantel Cameron won the eye test. And I think Katy Taylor won the eye test in this one and changed her tactics, made the adjustments. We've seen it in the past. She's done the same with Delphine Pursoon after a torrid fight when they first fought at Madison Square Garden. She made the adjustments brilliantly at Matchroom Square Garden during lockdown. And she made the adjustments here brilliantly. She hit in the mid-range. She punched with Cameron. She used her hand speed, and she held very cleverly. Wasn't penalised for that during the fight. For me, she won the fight 6-4. I had a lot of very close rounds in there. And at the end, Katy Taylor was hanging on. How would she be after 12 twos, by the way? 20-minute fight seemed to suit her.
Yeah, definitely. So, one of the big factors I noticed, that we're lucky enough to watch the first fight as well, ringside, and every shot that Katy threw, whether it was landing on the gloves, the elbows, or on the face, or whatever, the crowd went nuts. And I think it was the first round where Shantel landed a lot of, was it the first or second round? She landed a lot of power punches, deafening silence. It's like if you didn't see it, it's like it never happened. Surely that must make a difference in the scorecards, shouldn't it?
Well, I think there is a psychological advantage when you've got the crowd, screaming every time you throw a punch, whether it lands or not, whether you throw a flurry of punches. And she did throw punches in bunches. And I think you've also got judges sitting on three sides of the square circle, and you, as it's called. And if you don't see a punch as one of the judges, but you hear a roar from the crowd, it probably does have that effect on you. You're scoring it in some form or other. And I think, it's proven in lots of sports that home advantage is a massive factor. And as you say, the atmosphere and the love for Katy Taylor in Ireland does generate an amazing ambience for her, an amazing advantage. And I think she took all those advantages on Saturday night, notwithstanding the fact it was a much improved performance this time against Shantel Cameron. I think if you weren't judging the rounds, you could see on the eye test this time that she won the fight. Like Shantel Cameron bossed the first contest over 10 rounds.
It'll be interesting to see what happens next. So you reckon she needs to go into that trilogy and then look at Serrano afterwards?
They might do it in between. I mean, they'll make a decision on that. But I think at the moment, given the controversy that happened in the first round, given that you've had two pretty close fights between them, why not have the trilogy against Shantel Cameron? And the decision as well is, do you make it at lightweight now, or do you make it at super lightweight? I mean, my word, if you count the IBO belt as well, she holds 10 belts at the moment. You ain't carrying those to no press conference. You're going to need a team, and she's not a person with a big entourage. But I think if they can get Croke Park over the line for the spring, I would take Shantel Cameron next. But I do think she'll fight Amanda Serrano again. And, Tasha Jonas fights Michaela Meyer, and I think it's the 20th of January. So she's lined up. She wants 3 fights next year. They are there for her.
Just keeping it with women's boxing, you mentioned Tasha Jones. What do you make of that fight with Michaela Meyer? Because, I've seen some people saying, we should have got the Terry Harper rematch. It would have been undisputed as well. But, whether it was TV deals or egos, I don't know. Do you think they've missed an opportunity there, or do you think they're making the right move going with Meyer?
I think they will fight eventually. I don't think there's much doubt about it if Tasha Jonas beats Michaela Meyer. And I do see her as quite a big favourite in that fight. I think she's got power. I think she's got speed on her side, and she's also southpaw, of course. So I see her winning that fight handily. I think it's 10-2s, isn't it? And I just think it'll favour Tasha Jonas. Obviously, Michaela's a tall, upright fighter, but I just think the angles that Tasha's been working on, the things she's been creating, how improved she looks in spite of her being in her late 30s now. I just think that's her fight to lose.
Yeah, I think it's worth giving a shout out. Joe Gallagher, I don't think he gets the credit for some of the stuff he's done with his fighters over the years, and he's done a fantastic job with Tasha Jonas, hasn't he? Hence why he's been rewarded with a big thing in Saudi.
Absolutely right.
He has, definitely have. Um, David Benavides, we rarely talk about American boxing. Nobody expected him to literally blow away. I've got his bloody name now, but blow him away within 6 rounds. How impressed were you? And can you see Canelo taking that challenge on?
You couldn't remember Demetrius Bubu Andrade.
That's it. My mind went blank.
Look, David Benavides put on a brilliant performance because what he did, he got Bubu to fight him. And what we've seen from Andrade is that he's very aggressive early in his fights. He's put people down early, put opponents down early, and then he settles into the office. He's very elusive. He's got fantastic footwork, and he's able to stay away and use his boxing IQ to majestically kind of be elusive and outbox his opponents. Hit and not be hit. One of the great sayings in boxing, one of the perfection terms, and he's done a lot of those things in his career by hitting and not being hit. I think Benavides is already a force, but he's a big coming force at 168 pounds, 12 stone in the super middleweight division. And he clearly is the biggest challenge out there at 12 stone for Saul Canelo Alvarez. It's a fight that's got to happen. Maybe it'll happen in Saudi Arabia next year. Maybe Canelo will come to Saudi Arabia at some point. But for me, what Benavides did very well was draw Andrade into the fight and beat him up. I think it was the right decision for the corner to pull him out. He was hurt in there. But Benavides, for me, goes from strength to strength. And I love his modesty, him talking about, no, I don't belong in the pound-for-pound list at the moment, in the top 10. He's playing it right. Don't overplay himself against Canelo. We all want that Canelo fight. It's the biggest challenge, as I've said, at 12 stone. And I think that is the way into getting the fight signed against Canelo, who has, moved between promoters, is pretty much a free agent. And I'd be very, very disappointed in Canelo, and I don't see it that he would avoid the guy before he hangs up his gloves. But I think he'll probably try and fight for the undisputed light heavyweight title, or certainly have a rematch with Bivol, or even Beterbiev, whoever wins that fight when those two meet, or Callum Smith, if Callum Smith beats Beterbiev in January in Canada.
I want to get your expertise on this because I spoke to Eddie Hearn about this. He was very coy. He wouldn't really reveal a lot, but we're hearing Showtime are going out of business. That they're not going to be involved in boxing anymore. All these fighters, according to Eddie, are on fight-by-fight deals. There's going to be a lot of free agents in America. Benavides, for example, himself. Where are all these guys going to go? Could we potentially see a crazy shift in power where all these fighters end up on the zone because they've got a big stronghold with the US audience?
Yeah, that could very well happen. But, there is talk. Al Haymon's not talking about going out of business. Obviously, Premier Boxing Champions were on Showtime. That was their home for several years. But there is talk about Amazon, Netflix, these areas for these guys. So if they sign one of those big deals, I could see the fighters staying with them. But, the Bob Arum and Top Rank and ESPN are a very powerful force over there as well. So you could see them going there. It will all come down to the business deal and what's in it for them and how they project the number of fights and who they're fighting and how the beans count up at the end.
Okay. The last thing I want to speak to you about, Gareth, is John Fury did an interview last week, but most people think it's a fake interview, like it never happened, but it definitely did happen. It's referencing the Metro Sport. But just a brief outline. He spoke about Tyson's fight and is quoted as saying, "For my money, his last 3 fights have been on decline. Not a decline in ability, but a decline in strength, power, and physical condition." He goes, he needs to address it. And he also said the style he's seeing now, he's saying it's no good. The style he has right now, he wouldn't have beaten Klitschko with that. He won't beat Alexander Usyk with it. But obviously, the counter argument is that he went and beat. He had 4 knockout wins back to back against Wilder, and Dillian White, and obviously Chisora. So where do you stand with what John's saying there? And is there an issue?
I did read that interview actually. I think it was last Friday, And I thought it's always fascinating when John speaks, because he always speaks from the heart and he's very open about these things. And look, even back to the third fight with Deontay Wilder, John thought that Tyson should hang up his gloves, that he had nothing more to prove. And I got his point at the time. I think at that point, Usyk hadn't beaten Joshua twice. And I think John always speaks with great concern about Tyson, doesn't want him to be damaged. Tyson took a lot of damage in that third fight with Deontay Wilder. The fight with Francis Ngannou, we know he didn't look great that night. Yes, he maybe underestimated Francis Ngannou, and it's one of his poorest performances. And yet, for many of us as fight aficionados, it makes the Usyk fight even more compelling. Yes, he is getting older. Yes, he's been involved in the sport a very long time. I understand John's concerns, but I do think, again, from a purist point of view, from a legacy point of view, I think the Usyk fight is important. He also said he hasn't got time to get ready. That was one of his comments as well, that he felt he needed more time. I cannot see them having announced Ring of Fire for February the 17th in Riyadh, that they delay the fight any further. That we've had the press conference, the fight is signed. I think John is just talking out loud, but maybe it's his way of getting into Tyson's head to get into camp, to be ready. I think there is enough time for him to be ready. And maybe it's his wake-up call, his call to wake his son up. Come on, get in there, get yourself ready for the big fight. John is a very sage. I know he has his big moments where he goes crazy on stage and sells fights, and he's a big figure in the heavyweight industry, and obviously around his sons Roman and Tommy. But he speaks a lot of sense. He's a man who I have always found knows the fight industry and the boxing industry inside out, knows his onions. And for him to be saying that, I think Tyson needs to get his game plan right, get his team right, get everything absolutely right for this fight with Alexander Usyk on February the 17th. My instinct is that first fight is going to be a draw, and that they're going to go at it again later in the year in the second fight. I just feel it's going to be a really close fistic chess match, and I think they'll be inseparable. And I do think it'll be a controversial draw first time around. Just an instinct. I may be completely wrong, but that's the way I'm seeing it.
With regards to the changes John suggested, like you know all the guys that work with Tyson in different capacities. Like, do you think there's any need for change, or if he was to change someone, who would you change and who would you bring in?
I don't know. It's a very good question. I think the style that he showed in the second and third Wilder fights is a style that I'd like to see him fight Usyk with. I'd like to see him take it to Usyk. I mean, you remember that interview I did with Lennox Lewis in Saudi Arabia on the Legends Gala night, the Gala Legends night. And as Lennox was saying to me at the time, I said, what would you have done with Usyk? He said, are you kidding me? He said, I'd have rushed him and beaten him up and stopped him. And that's what he believes Tyson should do against Alexander Usyk, which is be aggressive. Don't sit on the back foot against him. Be aggressive. Take it to him. There's a blueprint there for being more aggressive against Usyk in the heavyweight division. You've got to watch those angles for that left hand that he creates, those counters. He is still a dangerous foe for Tyson Fury. Look, Sugar Hill Stewart's been with Tyson Fury for, 5 fights now? As you say, 4 knockouts and a points victory, even though the fight against Francis Ngannou didn't go that well. But they could easily call in other people in there. No one springs to mind at the moment, to be honest. Is there anyone that you thought could be in there? John's there, Sugar Hill's there. His team around him know his stuff. Ben Davison's not available. that's fascinating that he's working with Anthony Joshua. I think he's fine as he is. Nothing's particularly broken. He just had a very poor night against Francis Ngannou. He knows what he's got to do against Alexander Usyk. He's got to be big, aggressive, use his range, use his size, and take his advantages against Usyk, who is a very elusive, very clever boxer who nicks rounds very cleverly. No, I don't see anything being particularly broken there. But John's views are always fascinating.
Yeah, like you said there, and I think vouch for all the Furies, and you'll say the same. They all speak from the heart. There's no bullshit.
And with knowledge, they know the game. They know the game inside out.
Definitely so. Gareth, it's been a pleasure as always, and we'll catch up again next week. I'm sure there'll be loads more happening this week. Are you off to Belfast?
I'm not. I'm in the studio on Saturday night. We'll be covering Belfast from TalkSport Towers on Saturday night.
Good stuff. As always, Gareth, it's been a pleasure.
Have you ever been stranded on the side of a motorway with a broken down car? Like me, is that something that worries you? That's where motor breakdown insurance comes in. If your vehicle breaks down, a trained professional will be sent out to get you back on the road. Or if this is not possible within the specified time frame, to transport you to your home or to the nearest garage.